Wow, 100 acres just gone like that.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, just wiped out by that wildfire near the Lewis Ocean Bay Heritage Preserve in Horry County, South Carolina.
It happened so fast, too.
I know it was just yesterday, March 1st.
Yeah, and I mean, 100 acres, that's like an entire neighborhood just gone up in smoke.
Crazy.
Ah,
We've got reports, photos, official statements all about this fire. We're going to unpack it all right here, right now.
you know, this is a really good example of what we call the wildland-urban interface.
What's that?
Well, it's when wildfires happen near where people live.
Makes sense.
As more and more people are choosing to live closer to nature, this is going to keep happening, and it's dangerous.
Definitely. Okay, so let's rewind back to Saturday morning. Picture it. Beautiful weekend. Suddenly there's a fire near,
Oh, I read about this.
near this crazy intersection of roads.
Yeah.
Water Tower Road, Carolina Bays Parkway, Old Highway 90, and Edge Road.
Oh, wow, that's a lot.
I know. Can you imagine being a first responder trying to get to the right place with all those roads?
Yeah, and I mean, with the burn ban in place because of how dry and windy it was, that fire was just ready to explode.
Right. I remember hearing about that burn ban that even stopped people from having campfires and stuff.
Yeah, it's important to remember that burn bans are put in place to protect people and property, by restricting any outdoor burning.
Definitely makes sense.
Campfires, debris burning, you name it. They
Yeah.
just want to minimize the risk of accidental fires.
Right. But in this case, it sounds like it didn't even matter,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. Mother Nature had other plans.
Yeah. So anyway, by 6 p.m. Saturday evening, they got it 75% contained.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it took a huge effort, though. They had everyone out there.
I read that it was like all hands on deck.
Yeah. Horry County Fire Rescue, North Myrtle Beach Fire Department, the South Carolina Forestry Commission,
Wow.
the Department of Natural Resources, even the Horry County Police Department were involved.
You don't see that every day.
Yeah, it really does sound like everybody dropped what they were doing and rushed to help.
It makes you realize how important coordination is in these types of situations.
Sure.
Every agency has its own area of expertise. Like local fire departments are great at protecting buildings and structures,
I can see that.
while the Forestry Commission knows all about how wildland fires behave.
So by combining their strengths, they can respond so much better.
Exactly.
It's interesting that each agency has its own kind of superpower, like you said.
Right.
Did you see those pictures of the firefighters battling the flames right next to an industrial park?
No, I miss those.
Really? They're intense. The flames were so close to those houses on Tuckahoe Road.
It's really amazing that no structures were lost.
I agree. It could have been so much worse.
That's because those firefighters are so skilled and they know how to use things like fire breaks to their advantage.
Fire breaks?
Yeah, basically, it's a strip of land where they've cleared out all the plants and trees and stuff.
To stop the fire.
Yeah, it acts as a barrier, to stop or slow down the fire.
Mm.
They use bulldozers to clear these areas so firefighters have a better chance to contain the blaze.
Fire breaks, got it. So they reached full containment by Saturday evening, but it doesn't sound like it was really over then, right?
Not really.
They still had crews on site dealing with all the smoke.
Yeah, I can't even imagine what that must be like for people who live in the area, especially those with breathing problems.
Yeah, smoke inhalation is no joke.
Right. And this whole thing makes you think about how many wildfires there are these days.
Like more than usual.
Way more. Did you know there were 102 wildfires across South Carolina just on that same day?
102. Seriously.
It's true.
That just blows my mind.
And it really shows the challenges we're facing in these places where houses and forests and stuff are all mixed together.
Right.
Remember those dry, windy conditions we talked about and the burn ban? Well, those played a big part in all those fires.
This is where things get really interesting. Maybe even a little scary. Before all this, there was a controlled burn at Lewis Ocean Bay Preserve.
Oh, right.
I know controlled burns are supposed to help manage the forests and stop bigger wildfires from happening.
Right.
But this one got out of control. They scorched 275 acres.
275.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and they're not sure yet if that out-of-control burn is what caused this latest wildfire, but it makes you think.
It does.
Are controlled burns becoming riskier because of climate change?
That's a good question.
How do we weigh the benefits against the potential problems?
Those are all important questions, and honestly, the answers are pretty complicated.
I bet.
It's like walking a tightrope.
So we've talked about the initial response to the Lewis Ocean Bay fire, the amazing teamwork between all those agencies, and how wildfires seem to be happening more and more.
We've covered a lot of ground.
But there's so much more to talk about. I'm really interested in this whole wildland-urban interface thing.
That's a great place to pick up after a quick break.
Sounds good.
We'll look at the challenges and the risks and what we can do to make the future more fire resistant.
Can't wait. Stay tuned.
We'll be right back.
So we were just talking about that controlled burn that got out of control. The one that scorched all that land.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that even when we try to do the right thing, things can still go wrong, especially with wildfire.
Totally. But let's take a step back for a second. What does this whole incident and those 102 other wildfires in South Carolina tell us about the bigger picture?
I think it shows that wildfire risk is increasing all over the place.
It does feel that way.
And climate change is a big part of that.
Right.
Warmer temperatures dry out all the plants and trees, and that creates fuel for fires.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And on top of that, we're seeing these changes in rainfall,
Yeah.
longer periods of drought, so the dry spells are even more intense.
So it's not just one fire.
Yeah.
It's like this pattern of conditions that make wildfires more likely.
Right.
And it feels like it's just going to keep getting worse.
Yeah, it's like a vicious cycle. More people are moving into areas near wildlands, which increases the risk of human-caused fires. And then climate change makes those areas even more prone to burning.
It's like a recipe for disaster.
It's a complex issue with a lot of moving parts.
There's something we can do, right? We're not just stuck with this problem.
Exactly. We're not powerless. We just need to understand what's happening, and then we can start to build a future that's more resilient to wildfire.
I like the sound of that. So what can we do to break this cycle and reduce the risk of these devastating wildfires? Does it all come down to the firefighters?
Well, firefighters are incredibly important. They're the ones on the front lines. But stopping these fires before they happen requires a much bigger effort.
I bet.
Each of us needs to be careful about fire safety, especially when it's dry.
Right, so being careful with campfires, making sure cigarettes are put out all the way, that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Even those little things can make a big difference.
Makes sense. What about people who live in these fire-prone areas? What can they do?
When you're building or fixing up your home, use fire-resistant